Hi, back again on my channel. In this video, we will discuss a movie from Netflix called Nowhere. This movie tells the story of a pregnant woman who was trapped in the middle of the ocean for days. Armed with survival instincts and makeshift equipment. Can this woman still survive? Let's see the storyline to the end, but before we get to the storyline, I want to remember first, guys, that this content contains full spoilers. The movie begins by showing the state of the country of Spain, which has experienced a scarcity of resources for 17 months. Not only Spain, there are several other countries that are also experiencing the same thing. In order to end the problem, the government also made an insufficiency movement by capturing every pregnant woman and child to reduce the population. The scene then switches to show a couple named Mia and Nico, who plan to escape Spain through illegal channels. With Mia pregnant, Nico is determined to make the decision because he doesn't want Mia to be arrested by the government. After paying with some money and their wedding rings, Mia and Nico finally managed to get into the container along with several other people who also intended to escape. Most of them were pregnant women or families with children. So the plan was to bring them to the port and send them to Ireland by sea. On the way, Nico felt Mia's stomach to check on their baby. Mia said she hadn't felt the baby kick for 2 days, and that worried her. But Nico tried to strengthen Mia and assured her that their baby would be born safely. Not long after, the truck carrying the container suddenly stopped and opened. There were a lot of people in the container, so the owner divided them up and told half of them to get off. Unfortunately, Nico was one of the people ordered to get off, so he was separated from Mia. Mia, who was crying in fear, saw through the hole in the container that Nico had gotten into another green container, number 107. Mia quickly called Nico. Nico calmed Mia down by saying that he would do everything possible so that they could meet again after arriving at the port. On the way to the port, the container passed through streets filled with chaos due to the crisis that had occurred. The container was also hit several times by gunfire, which caused holes in several parts. Through the holes, Mia saw many pregnant women and children being forcibly arrested by the police. The container carrying Mia then stopped at a checkpoint. The police would check the container as it passed through to make sure no one was crossing the port illegally. Fortunately, the container was designed with 2 rooms, so that the police wouldn't notice the people hiding. But the policeman was clever enough. He deliberately shot part of the container so that he knew that there was another part hidden inside. As a result, they were caught and asked to come out. The policeman promised not to hurt them and took them to a safe place. None of the passengers dared to come out to show themselves. Mia, who was there, chose to climb onto a wooden box so that she could protect herself. Who would have thought Mia's decision was a very correct decision, because after that the police shot everyone including children. Only Mia managed to survive the incident. She immediately sent a message to Nico to hide immediately, because Mia didn't want to lose Nico. After continuing the journey, the container finally arrived at the port. The container and several other containers were then loaded onto a ship that would be sent to Ireland. Until then, Mia kept trying to contact Nico, but she didn't get an answer. When night fell, the ship experienced violent shocks due to rain and storms in the middle of the ocean. The people who were still inside the container screamed for help, as did Mia. Unfortunately, the ship's officers could not get everyone out, so some containers fell overboard due to the increasingly violent shocks. The situation caused Mia, who was inside the container, to be thrown and eventually fainted. A few hours later, Mia woke up with the container starting to flood because water entered through small holes. She peered through the holes and all she could see was the sea and several containers that had sunk. Now Mia is trapped in a container, and she must survive in there until help arrives. Soon Mia saw the green container number 107, which slowly began to sink, and heard the screams of the people inside. Mia was panicking, thinking about Nico's safety. Especially at that time, Nico still could not be contacted. It was getting darker and Mia was slowly losing her will to survive. She grabbed a folding knife nearby and intended to kill herself. But her stomach suddenly moved, indicating that the baby was still alive. This made Mia undo her intention and she chose to survive. The next day, Mia began to make up her mind to survive in the container. She began to collect items that were there, starting from a bottle of water, flashlight, matches, iron drill, and several other objects. Not long after, Mia got a call from Nico. Unexpectedly, Nico was still alive. Because the driver who brought the container deceived the passengers and left them outside the city. After hearing what happened to Mia, Nico also asked Mia to stay calm, and he promised to save her soon. The next night, Mia's container was hit again by rain and storms. That night, Mia tried to hold on as hard as she could because it looked like she was about to give birth. It was in the midst of the shock that Mia finally gave birth to a baby girl. The poor baby was born in the dark and cold, but luckily she could still be saved. There was no medical equipment to help Mia at that time, so she had to remove the baby's placenta herself and save it in a Tupperware. Mia, who was confused, tried to calm her baby, who kept crying. After all, the baby must have been starving. But Mia had difficulty expressing breast milk because she lacked food and drink intake. That's why Mia tried to fulfill her intake by eating and drinking what she could. Day after day, her food and drink began to run out, but until now Mia is still trapped in the container. As a result, she began to drill holes in the ceiling of the container so that she could get out and find food. Unfortunately, the drill tool was suddenly broken. This also made Mia very frustrated. In a state of hunger and thirst, Mia was finally forced to eat her own baby's placenta because she was no longer able to survive. The next day, Mia again tried to puncture the container with a penknife. But it turned out that the penknife was also damaged. The longer, Mia was getting weaker and more helpless. Until one night, Mia dreamed of her first daughter named Uma. Uma turned out to be a victim of government arrest when the regulation had just been enacted. That's what made Nico desperate to take Mia away from Spain, because he didn't want Mia and their future baby to be arrested by the government. The next morning, it was raining quite heavily. Mia quickly grabbed some Tupperware to store the water. After that, Mia got the idea to pull the container hull using a belt, and fortunately it worked. After all this time, Mia was finally able to breathe fresh air, and she could see that all around her was just a vast expanse of sea. Accidentally, when Mia was throwing her son's poop, fish began to approach. It also made her have the idea to catch fish as food. Then Mia also saw an airplane passing by. She immediately took a piece of glass, hoping that the people on the plane would see that there was someone who needed help. Because she was in a hurry, Mia's leg was torn because it was scratched by the container iron. Because her blood kept flowing, Mia was forced to sew up the wound with makeshift tools. The next day, Mia managed to make a net to catch fish. Fortunately, Mia's efforts finally paid off, because finally Mia could eat fish even though it was eaten in a raw state. Mia's struggle continued. This time she threw dozens of Tupperware containing words of help, hoping that maybe someone would find her. Surprisingly, Mia and her baby named Noah survived inside the container until the 12th day. That day, Mia finally got a call from Nico. Mia initially thought Nico was already on his way to save them, but it turned out that in the phone call, Nico wanted to say goodbye to Mia, because he was dying. Nico's intention to save Mia was instantly destroyed because he had been caught by the police and shot. Nia also told Nico about their child who had been born, and that made Nico happy in the last remnants of his life. Now Mia's hope is completely shattered. She doesn't know what to do anymore, and she even seems to have lost the reason to survive. The short story is that on the 26th day some of the containers have now begun to be submerged in water. Nia took Noah to the top of the container, while preparing tools for survival. At night, the hulls of the container that had been closed now began to open again, so that the water that entered became more and more. Nia also tried to get into the container to take a photo of Uma, who was left behind, but unfortunately Nia's foot got caught on the rope. In the midst of the container's sinking condition, Nia tried hard to free herself, and luckily it worked. Once out of the container, Mia tried to find Noah. In the middle of the vast ocean, a whale approached Mia's body, but fortunately the whale did not eat her. The water spray from the whale's back then hit Noah's body, and it made him cry. It was thanks to this that Mia could hear Noah's voice, and managed to find her. Now the mother and son finally meet, but who knows how long they can survive being tossed around in the middle of the ocean. The next day, seagulls gathered around Mia and Noah because of the fish carcasses inside the Tupperware. Fortunately, this attracted the attention of a couple who were sailing, so they approached and rescued Noah. When the rope near Noah was pulled, they found Mia in an unconscious state. The mother quickly gave Mia artificial breath, and fortunately it saved her life. The father then called the authorities, telling them that they had found a mother and baby in need of help. After struggling for almost a month, Mia and Noah finally got help, and managed to survive, and the movie was finally finished. So that's it guys, the whole storyline of the movie Nowhere. If you are in Mia's position, are you sure you can survive until 26 days? Or are you the type who just accept fate? Please enliven your answers in the comments column, guys. Thank you very much for watching the storyline this time, and see you in the next storyline.